Hi again. So we're looking in Ephesians chapter 5. We're just going to look at the first 2 verses today. It really sets up the rest of chapter 5. Very simple. Paul says, imitate God, therefore, in everything you do, because you are his dear children. Live a life filled with love, following the example of Christ. He loved us and offered himself as a sacrifice for us, a pleasing aroma to God. Now the words we understand, the concepts may be a little bit foreign to us. A pleasing aroma to God. That's not something that we commonly say. If you look for pleasing aroma in a concordance, what you'll find is that this is the only time in the New Testament these words are used. But in the Old Testament, it's a common way to refer to sacrifices. 3 times in the book of Exodus, and then in the book of Leviticus, a bunch of times. Pleasing aroma is used to describe every single type of sacrifice that the Israelites were to make to God. The burnt offering, the grain offering, the peace offering, the sin offering, even the ordination offering, all of these were called a pleasing aroma. The interesting thing is that the aroma induced by these sacrifices was not necessarily pleasing. Many times it dealt with burning flesh, the flesh of animals, and yet it's called a pleasing aroma to God. Why? Because through that sacrifice, God was brought back into relationship with his people. Paul tells us in this passage that we are to imitate, we are to follow the example of Christ. Live a life filled with love, walk in love. Because Christ offered himself as a sacrifice, a pleasing aroma to God. He offered himself as a sacrifice. How in the world do we imitate that? We certainly can't be sacrificed for the sins of the world like Christ was. But we can live a life of self-sacrifice. You know, I believe the best way to describe sin is using a term that Martin Luther first coined. He said, sin is that which is incurvatus in se in Latin, curved in upon itself. Sin is self-interest. The basic sin is looking out for ourselves. It's interesting that in our Western culture, that's taught as a virtue, to look out for number one. And yet the Bible says that is the essence of all sin. And Paul calls us to live a life like Christ that reflects self-sacrifice instead of self-interest. What about you? Think of your own life today. In what sense do you attempt to look out for yourself? Is there a better way to live? Is there someone today that you can live a life of sacrifice for? Look for that person. Find something that you can do today to show Christ's love to them. We'll see you tomorrow.